have on. I'm going to guess we're going to want to start with public comment, but could be wrong.
Yeah, we could start with public comment if you'd like.
Oh, okay. So if we have any folks on the call who are not members of the committee who would like to address the committee, please feel free to do so. You can come off mute or you can share thoughts in the chat. We'll be monitoring the chat as well.
And I don't see any hands go up.
All right. Well, you all know where to find us. If you do have sporadic great ideas, please feel free to pop them in chat. We'll make sure they get read out loud. Otherwise, maybe we can move to our next item.
Okay. I think the other main thing we wanted to do was collect feedback from anyone who had any on the report for the council, or our 2024 report. So we can dive into that next if that works for everybody. I will fire up a screen share with it. All right, can you all see my screen?
We can see.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I did not have sections to review specifically today. I don't know if Phil is on yet. I know he was working on updated language for AI training. So once he jumps on, we can dive into his updates there. But I did want to just kind of, I had circulated a draft last week. There were some slight changes. Circulated that again this week. So was just wondering if there was any additional feedback or changes we needed to discuss, or thoughts that folks had on how the report's going.
No feedback or suggested changes, but question about this report and then the inventory report. Do they go together? Do we deliver those together?
We'll deliver them at the same time as the ADS report. So that'll be the 20th, 22nd, whatever day that is. They'll all kind of go together, but they're separate reports.
So do we want to have time to review that inventory here just to make sure folks have seen it before it gets delivered to the legislature and have a chance to ask questions? Or
that's up to you all. I mean, we can do a review of it in advance if you'd like. I don't have it ready to present yet, so.
Okay, John's hand's up.
So just a quick question. So Josiah, will you be verbally presenting it when you hand it in? Will you actually have a session with legislatures, or who? It's just a paper submission?
It's just a paper submission, and then there are a couple legislators who have expressed interest in doing a follow-up after, but I'm assuming that those will not be formal testimony, at least at first.
Have you heard from Brian Chena?
Have not heard from him
Interesting.
in a couple months.
Okay. I know he's traveling, but yeah, he will probably be eager. Okay, great.
Yep. Okay. Well, since last we met, I guess the main update that was included in the draft that was sent this week that was not in the previous draft is updates to the procurement standards and the notice of AI usage. So there wasn't really like official wording in any of this previously, and now it is more official wording. So feel free, to redline it and send it back to me. But the big idea here is that ADS will work with the procurement office within BGS. Let me highlight that. That needs to be expanded. To make a new attachment for AI contracts or add to an existing attachment, but really putting the development of the procurement standard not directly in this group. That should happen within ADS and BGS and then come back to this group for review. So that's the approach that the language has now. So ADS will be working on standard templates, standard attachment that can be used in contracting, and we can do that with the help of, say, Michelle and Jake and others in ADS who have interest in that. And then the rest of this is basically recommendations of things that should be included in that procurement language. Is that approach? Everybody happy with that approach?
Yes.
So there were a few things that we had said we were explicitly not covering at this time, but we wanted to kind of call them out as things we were explicitly not covering, but thought would be worth coming back to. One of them is kind of anything about data privacy and its relationship to AI broadly. Another one was differential privacy specifically. Another was security on AI models and systems, and then right to be forgotten. I think those were the four that I had notes of that the council had said. These are good things that we should talk about in the future, but we're not ready to talk about right now. Go ahead, John.
But just a specific question about that. Are we, I think it's good that we're saying we haven't addressed them. Are we saying by way of this that we will go back and address them, or just saying that we haven't addressed them yet?
I put will review. I was trying to leave it open-ended, but definitely interested in all your feedback on that.
I think the way you have it is fine at this point, meaning we don't really know what our plan is for each of these items yet. We need to bring them up for like more in-depth discussion.
Okay. Great. Is there anything else we want to add to this list of topics that we've discussed over the last couple months? I think this covers a lot of it, but if there's anything else that we need to call out explicitly, we can add that. This I think we've discussed pretty well. Okay, so then there's the notice of AI usage. I kind of smushed the explainability and notice of AI usage sections together because they were really covering the same ground, and built out this section a little bit and then the example. So I think that this is largely what we discussed last time. I wanted to highlight that that was a change from the previous week's version that got fleshed out. I think that's the guts of what was changed. So if there's no other specific feedback, I guess, how do we want to handle like final draft and sign off of this year's report?
I think all the members, maybe we should talk about whether we want to do a DocuSign for all of them.
Okay.
So just going further on that, so this the state makes use of DocuSign for document review and sign off. We could really just treat it more as a, a chance to kind of say you've had a chance to review it. But essentially, we'd put your email addresses in, and it would kind of, we'd get routed. It would get routed to you along with, once all the signatures hit, it could then get routed to the appropriate persons at the legislature that we have to for delivery. What do you guys think of that?
I've never done that before, for report drafting, but I'm comfortable with it. If other people want to do that, that's fine with me.
Susanna, how have you handled it for other reports?
A lot messier, usually. It's just a lot of emails flying around, and then somehow it all gets done.
That's basically what we did last year, and then we realized that was an open meeting, and so we won't do that exactly the same as we did last year again. But if we want to just circulate it through email, and when 5 people or 6 people are like, "Yep, it's good," that works for me too. But the DocuSign approach is certainly a little bit more formal and structured, and
and easier to track.
it is easier to track.
Yeah, I was
Less
going to say
emails
it's
for me.
easier. Yeah, it's definitely easier.
Are we comfortable then if, so I know there's certain folks like, the representative of, the Supreme Court who hasn't been engaged with us yet. So are we like comfortable if it's like six people have signed off, like that would count, for the purposes of this meeting? At that point, it's good.
Mhm.
Is it like quorum rules that there's a specific?
That's what I was thinking, like 6 would be a majority of our members, so that would be, yeah, that's kind of what I was going for.
I don't know if that's right or wrong, but we were at least gonna try to get everybody's signature, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah.
then
I
we
think it
can
makes-
see.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
I was just gonna say, I think it does make sense to try to get everyone's signatures, and then maybe there could just be a note in there that's just like, the 6, the signatures here represent a quorum of members. If a name doesn't appear on here, it's not necessarily because they didn't like it. I mean, I don't know. I guess it'd be good to hear at least from those remaining folks.
Yeah, I mean, they're appointed to be on this, council. They should either say they're going to abstain somehow or sign it. I feel like that's a responsibility.
I think so too, because if it leaves, I think Shoshana, what you said is right, is that if somebody's missing, it implies that they didn't agree. And it might just be that they didn't read their email. I think we should try to get everyone.
Could
we
we,
And they can abstain.
make an option to abstain? I mean, if somebody doesn't feel like signing it, I don't know why they wouldn't, but maybe they haven't participated or whatever. They just say, I abstain. That way they're not against, but they're not. And it shows they were asked.
Do we know who it is? I don't-
Justice
not to-
Dooley?
Justice Dooley is one, and there have been others who aren't like, who haven't been very involved over the last couple months, and I haven't heard from in a while. So,
Okay.
try
I'm not
to
asking
talk
because
to-
I wanted anyone to be named and shamed. I thought maybe it was someone who I already had their number and could just call them up. I don't know just Julie, but
I do know him well, if you want me to bug him. Oh, we were on the task force together. You want me to? Because I think he'd be very happy to read it, but he'll also have a whole lot of suggestions if I know him well. I do know him well. You want me to reach out to him?
the challenge is incorporating suggestions at this point in a way that everyone else can review
Exactly.
afterwards.
Yeah, exactly.
Are you asking me?
No,
Oh,
I mean,
okay. I
feel
didn't think
free,
so.
feel free to
The
answer. If you
question
have an
is,
answer, go for it.
be careful what
You
you
can-
ask for.
You can ping him.
Okay.
I mean, I think, we are sending out the, DocuSign sends out the request to review and sign. So he'll be in that list of, invitees to review and sign at that point.
Does the DocuSign, our submission, it'll include the list of signatures, or are they just getting the work product itself?
We can do it either way.
Yeah.
Because maybe we can avoid this question by just not including that in the submission, right? Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's a work product that's been approved by a majority of the council.
Yeah.
And I worry that the detail of documenting who signed and who didn't, for us, we know it's a logistical thing. But if it creates the perception of strong disagreement, then I wonder if it's just more trouble than it's worth to have that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be opaque about the process, but if our process is really just kind of a formality, then I wonder if it just makes sense for them to get the report and link the DocuSign business to us and keep trying to engage with those members on the back end.
Yeah, I mean, the other option is just to put it in because the only thing I was trying to accomplish, I wasn't trying to get, actual sign off or disagreement or any of that. It was more or less just for the public record, like who generated this report, right? Maybe we can just list that, Josiah, based upon the feedback and everything else, just say these, authors, and then be done with it as Susanna's suggesting.
But is there some requirement that it be signed?
No.
Oh, well, yeah, then definitely, or maybe even Josiah, you could sign it, or as long as you have your quorum that agrees. I agree with you, Susanna. Maybe that's better to not complicate it with
Yeah.
voting on it, essentially.
Okay. So then we'll get a final draft around to you all. I think Monday's a holiday, so it'll be Tuesday. Yeah, have a read over. If you have any final changes, send those over. And I'll try to connect with Phil to get those changes in by Tuesday, his recommendations for language. Okay.
Thanks, Josiah.
You do it. Go ahead.
Along this front, right? So so logistically, there is a page for the director of AI under the Agency of Digital Services, and that's where you've put this and a lot of the other artifacts. The question I was going to bring up is, do we want to continue doing that as a council here? Do we want to generate sort of our own online presence to track our work as well? Just a question. I don't really have an opinion yet.
Yeah, so what Mark's talking about is this page, the Agency of Digital Services has an AI page. I've got key documents on there, including our report, that became the Code of Ethics, and a few of the other things that we produced as work products. If the council wants a separate page, we can do that, or we can continue to put stuff here. One way or the other, I have been asked by media and others to have the list of council members somewhere up here. So I will be putting that either on this page, or I can send it to somebody else to put on another page.
Yeah, and that's really what was driving my question, which is like, maybe we want to, if we keep yours, which I'm cool with doing, we do want to put that list of council members up there.
I'm pretty agnostic about it. I mean, we could just have the page and then have 3 tabs: the council, the guy, and the rest of the world, and we could do that. Or if the council wants its own page, I would also be fine with that. I guess I don't really see yeah, I guess one advantage to having it centralized is that it's centralized. So if you're a member of the public and you just want to understand Vermont and everything that it's doing on AI, you can go to one spot and be directed. But at the same time, if we wanted a separate page, as long as they cross-link appropriately so that there's no wrong door and people can find what they need or who they need, then that could be fine too. I know I'm basically saying to every question, I'm cool with whatever, but I think that's better than silence because then you don't know where the
Yeah.
members are. So I'm at least saying it out loud.
Right. Yeah, and I bring it up because I recognize I got a blind spot on user experience for a lot of this type of stuff too, right? Like I just like to use Google search and find things that way. So
You should try using an AI search.
I do also have,
Yeah.
I have the generative plug-in to my Google search.
Oh, the new one, the Bard thing.
Yeah, yeah,
How's it
it's pretty
look?
cool.
Is it good?
Yeah, actually, if you look at my profile picture, that it generated a profile picture for me yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, wait to see that. That's interesting.
I like the fact that it gave me a hard hat as if I'm actually doing something rugged in my life.
Now, when we're listed, we would be listed with our whatever affiliations we have. I think if somebody were looking, they wouldn't care so much who we were, but what organizations were represented. Is that right?
Yeah, that's my sense. Okay, well, if no one cares, I won't build another website. I'll keep using the one that we have, and add the list of counselors to that. And once this document's submitted, add this as well.
I do see Amanda in the chat is saying that works for her too. One thing that we may want to do, Mark, you talked about, not necessarily having all the insight into the user experience. If we wanted to, we could pull together just a really small, I don't know, call it a focus group or a test group or whatever, and just say, hey, here's the AI website right now. Poke around, let us know. Does this work? Do you feel like you could get your questions answered? And just see if people feel like we need that. And I would try to send it out to a broad base, not just people who are savvy with tech, but perhaps we could reach, I don't know, a good 50 folks from different vantage points, and just see. And we don't, maybe that's not a decision for us to make, but we could just be informed by others.
Yep, I always dig that. It's always the thing that bites me, so I ask for it.
I had two other items for the council, mostly thinking about the coming year, because I feel like this is still winding up 2023 for us. If now's a good time for those. Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a conversation with Agency of Education today around some of the work that's going on to support building AI literacy among educators and among students. And they pointed me at a number of resources, most of which I'm still digesting, but I did review this one, which I thought was really, really good. That one is the tech.ed.gov/AI. And as I was reading their key insights, thinking back to what we had seen as trends in workforce, here, let me throw this on the screen. Trends in workforce development, like it's very, very similar, and that made me feel like we're on the right track. Thought that was helpful, and just wanted to highlight this as a resource for us, especially as I think this coming year will likely be thinking a bit more about what AI looks like in our community and what workforce readiness looks like, and things like that. So that,
Yeah.
I just dropped a link to that in chat. Feel free to look around in there.
What are we looking at? Is this something that we would use as a group to sort of guide our activity, or that we're suggesting AOE uses? What would?
I think, I mean, so where I was coming from with this is one of our mandates from legislature was kind of that community engagement piece, and I think one of the places we've been talking about doing that is among teachers, and like in the context of schools and higher ed programs. And so I just wanted to highlight this as kind of the current state of the art in that space, and how to apply it from US DOE. So that's that one. It's mostly just want to make you aware of that resource. Let's see. The other piece I wanted to highlight for the group is that there are a number of folks who I've been talking to from business, like Microsoft, Amazon, folks like that, as well as my peers in other states who are really interested in the work that we're doing here. And if the council is interested in getting feedback on our code of ethics and the 24 report from any of those folks, I'd be happy to set up something maybe for our February meeting or March meeting with one of those groups. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing some
I think
nods.
that'd be great. I think
Okay.
that'd be great.
Any preference relative to like Microsoft, Amazon's versus other states, or if both are interesting? Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say if we bring in any, vendors, let's try to do them as a group so that we're not really, seeming to like tie into one or another in particular.
I think it's a
Yeah,
great idea.
I
Sorry, go ahead.
agree. No, thanks. I agree. And also I would say if we're gonna have folks from government from other jurisdictions and also vendors, I don't know, maybe this feels like a minor point, but I would like to see our counterparts in government first, and then we can bring in the group of vendors, only because I don't want us to be anchored from the framing of people who are trying to sell us a thing.
Right.
I kind of want to hear a more realistic perspective from people who are similarly situated. So if we could maybe start with government and then do the sales pitch.
I 100% agree because I feel like we're on a cusp of, we see similarities with the various codes and guidelines that we've put out there, that we're on the cusp of having some opportunity to have standards, and those standards, across those jurisdictions and things like that. Having those conversations ahead of technology to me is far more important. So
Okay. So our February meeting, I think, would be February 2nd, I think.
okay.
So I'll reach out to other states, and there's about a dozen or so who I interact with pretty regularly, and we'll see if we can get 3 or 4 folks to review and jump in on that meeting if that works for you all.
Is there any
Once we
sort
get
of,
that up.
that sounds great. Is there any sort of ad hoc organization? I mean, that you all get together?
Yeah,
That's cool.
we do, and the January meeting should be coming up here somewhat soon. Tech Talent Project convenes one, and NASIO convenes another, and
And
it's not just states, but Aaron Judy from Maricopa County in Arizona convenes more of a mad scientist focused one, but it's a good one.
Ooh, tell me more.
It's
NASIO is, sorry, NASIO is the National Association of State CIOs, so it's already an organization that's pulled all the states together.
Hey, Josiah, one other group, what I was wondering about is, I know that you've been pulled in as an advisor to the thing that Denise Jajurkin and Chris Thompson is doing. To what extent can they, for the rest of you, there's a kind of an ad hoc group that's sort of gelling, that came out of like the AI art show that happened, and a couple of panels around that, and one at Generator, and they're putting together an advisory group, which I think you're part of, Josiah, right? And they're focusing on public awareness of AI in I think they're on both sides, trying to talk about the possibilities and also the dangers. Do we want any sort of official interface with them? Could they help us, or are they doing something in parallel? Because I think that they're trying to come up with a lot of public outreach. Might they be useful? What do you think about it?
I would say yes. And yeah, I've been meeting with them somewhat regularly to kind of strategize on how we can do more public outreach. And keeping them apprised of the stuff that we're working on. I think, yeah, I think it'd be really helpful. I would be open to, if the council wants to interface with them on a regular basis, maybe we could make an agenda item once a quarter or something for them to come speak to us
Well,
about the work we're doing.
Sort of like we were just talking about, and I really agree, talking to the other states before we talk to vendors. Maybe even before we talk to vendors, it'd be interesting to talk to this group, have a short bit where they present what they're doing and we figure out the synergies. I think that they've got all the right energy and stuff to help us sort of propagate publicly some stuff, but they also are kind of coming from an arts perspective, which maybe we want to help them balance. Anyway, would that be appropriate for them to come in 5 minutes and present what they're doing?
I'm looking to Mark and Susanna as the chairs.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
Yeah.
I think that would be great. So
I should
maybe
probably take
lower
notes
priority than, yeah.
on our February agenda.
Yeah.
Minute, and I'll write stuff down. We can say this the right things.
I think it's a kind of lower priority than talking to the other states, but if there's a slot for that, I think it'd be very interesting.
So it seems like maybe we're talking something like, are we thinking that the second will be just the other states and we'd use the March meeting for the AI Vermont group and others?
That's what it feels like, but
Figure out what day that is in March. March 1st, it looks like.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think, Josiah, you'll be since you're working with them, I'm actually getting dragged into it too, but since you're working with them, you can be the judge of when they would be ready to talk to us, when it would be helpful. Even if it's later than that.
Yeah. Yeah. I can talk to them about it. And I have contacts if we want to hear from vendors on March 1st. Not vendors, but you know, tech giants, I guess. There's a couple of like I have contacts at Microsoft and Amazon. I don't really have anybody at Google. I don't know if anybody else would want to reach out and invite them. I think the only people I have at Google are sales reps, so that's not the right type of people for this.
I can get to the right people at Google.
Okay. Right. Any other tech companies we'd want to bring in on that one?
IBM for sure.
So an interesting point there is when I was on the task, so I'm retired, but I have a fellow emeritus, so I'm still actually contracted to IBM. And I was still working with them when I was on the task force. And I had a CEO level letter come to me saying, be careful, because if I served there, and even if I were doing it an independent, it might look like lobbying. So I can talk about IBM, but I don't think it should be me.
Gotcha.
Could you reach out to the right person at IBM to get them to come?
Can you ask, can you refine a little bit? Like when you reach out to the Google and Amazon folks, what kind of person would it be and what sort of thing would you want to hear? There wasn't a sale. I mean, I don't think we want to hear a sales pitch. What would you like to hear?
I would think so. Like in Microsoft land, it's their CELA, it's their public sector legal counsel practice.
Okay.
That I think is useful, that they have some idea of where Microsoft is going strategically, and also like can provide some feedback about, hey, if we had to operate in an environment that was regulated based on the structures that you're putting in place, how would that go for us? What feedback would we have? How does this align to where we're going with our development?
Okay.
I think that's the
helpful.
right flavor.
So if I reached out to IBM General Counsel, they have a group that's in AI about ethics and accountability and stuff like that. Would that be the right person?
I think so.
Okay, I can take the to do that. What about small startups in the state?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, like deep, and I mean that's the main one that comes to mind. There are others though. I don't know if they would have the same flavor of feedback.
Yeah, it would probably not be, probably be more technical or market stuff.
Yep.
So what if we came up with some
Did Mark just freeze?
He looks frozen to me.
Yeah, I did.
rather than having in a potentially extremely fragmented conversation with different organizations, you know what I mean? Depending on what their angle is, we could drive the conversation a little bit more.
The first part of your comment got lost, Mark, because it was frozen.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, I'm just saying, like, maybe we could, at the tail end of February gathering, come up with sort of the framework of what types of things would we like to hear about from the private sector, and what are their thoughts in particular areas, where do they see concern, risk, opportunity for government, things like that, but have those questions come from us so we drive the conversation and then really kind of give them a chance to, regardless of who they are, just kind of respond and give their point of view on those things so that we, it doesn't become us getting fragmented conversations with different vendors, depending upon what their market strategy may be or their product strategy or whatever it may be.
Okay.
And then maybe during that time with even the other states, right, we can make it known that we're going to have, our intent is to have this conversation, and even really kind of go into kind of, hey, what's your viewpoint on some of the things that we should probably be driving into that conversation?
Yeah.
Is there any advantage of actually doing it kind of the other way around and having the multi-states CISO group, or CISO or CISO group you were talking about, invite the big companies to come and talk to everyone? It might have a little more weight, and we might be able to get someone more senior.
Yeah, I think if we talk to the other states first, and I'll also mention to them that, like, hey, we're going to use our March 1st session in this way. Please come, and I think we'd probably get at least 4 or 5 other states, maybe more, to join us that day.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, I think it puts more weight on it from the companies, and so they're likely to give it more thought.
Yeah. One other agenda item, and I'm interested in the council's thoughts on where this fits, is there's a number of bills on the wall right now pertaining to AI in legislature. I think we're up to 4, maybe 5. And as I'm getting ready, I mean, I'm assuming that there will be some opportunity for me to testify on those. I'd love to get the council's thoughts as I'm preparing that. So actually, I think there might be up to 6 now. So there's quite a bit of activity. I don't know how much of that will become like topics of discussion or they'll be looking for testimony, but I'd love to, yeah, if the council wants to be involved in that, I'd love to schedule some time to go through those.
Are they all starting in the House, or any of them starting in the Senate?
All the ones I know about are starting in the House.
Do you know what they pertain to? What is the general, can you sort of?
Yeah, so there's, I don't remember them all off the top of my head. There's one around AI liability, which is part of a multi-state approach to AI liability. It's kind of got a lot in it, but the title is around AI liability. Another one is a carve out of the facial recognition, the law around not using facial recognition for identity proofing, which I don't know that we care about that deeply, but it's AI adjacent. And let me go find the rest of the list.
Yeah, I see two in the session tracker, which I can quickly share here. Oops, no, I cannot because I'm on my tablet and it doesn't share the same way. Bummer. But anybody interested, if you go to legislature.vermont.gov, and then there's the bill tab and then the House tab. I just pulled up everything for the 2024 session and did a keyword search on intelligence, and it brought up two bills there, both on regulating developers and employers of certain artificial intelligence systems, and I think those fall into the space of concern, mainly around let me just see where to.
So the other ones that I'm aware of, and I don't know if this one has landed yet. Well, yeah, let's go with the ones that have already landed, because the ones that haven't landed yet may evolve quite a bit. So yeah, I think those two, H710 and H711, are the big ones. Liability standards is the one I was referring to, and 710 is another one.
Okay.
I can drop the link to those two in the chat so that you can review them at your leisure. 710. And 711. So when do we want to, if we want to have some of our time focused on that work, when do we want to do that? Is April okay timing for that, or do we need to do it before?
No, I think that's good timing.
I can't, I'm looking at those bills and in all of the stuff we're doing, I mean, I think it's really good that we're taking, we're trying to put guardrails on AI. But as part of the task force, one of the things that we were trying to figure out is how do we support, you development of AI that in a way that would be socially beneficial. And I think that all of these it seems like almost all of these conversations are on the negative and the dangers. I think it's totally appropriate that we focus on that first. But to what extent is our purview, I think like the conversation we had about with the the small pickup group trying to do public awareness of AI. To what extent are we there to talk about, possible good uses and put resources in education programs in schools and things like that? Because I think an informed public is a better public, and I think to talk about the potential societal benefits is really important. Could be very important for this, for research in Vermont, for companies in Vermont, for environmental stewardship in Vermont. So is that in our purview?
My
So
understanding is
yeah.
it is in our purview, yes. I think right now we're focused, we've obviously been focused on on the annual report, but once we get out there, we should be, basically having agenda sessions in my mind around, just as you're saying, potential opportunities for the state. Just during the prior committee, you and I, we know we talked to a lot of folks who were doing some really neat stuff and had some really neat ideas that they said if government could get behind and help push a little bit, could do a lot of great things for the state. So we need to get those back into the conversation for sure.
Yeah, I definitely think doing what we're doing first makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that I'm hoping that at some point we can get that in, uses of ethical AI.
Yeah.
But I agree very much with the direction we're taking so far.
Maybe that's a good time to plug in folks like Deep and some of the other, yeah. So maybe the May session could be focused on that. Okay.
Yeah. And do we ever see ourselves having like any form of like subcommittee, even kind of committees that come in partnership with like some of the folks who attend here on a regular basis who aren't committee members, so that we can like maybe start to dig deeper in some areas, like the education, AI and education is certainly an area that's going to be a repetitive conversation for us, right? So I don't, does that need a subcommittee? Something like smart agriculture, um, public safety, those kinds of things there's going to be like a small handful of topics that here in the state we're just going to be continuously addressing, and maybe we need to have some more in-depth ideas on. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable possibility to leave open, that we may need to form some subcommittees.
Okay.
And they don't have to be standing, they could be task and finish groups.
Okay. So, John, maybe that's also a mechanism to kind of what you were speaking towards, right?
Yeah, I like that idea. And I also like, Susanna, that they would be tasked with a specific thing, because we're a small group and subdividing too much.
Yeah.
I think the conversation with the group we were talking about with Denise and company might spur some thinking, and then a couple of us could go off and find those synergies. I think that would be good.
Okay, well, here, let me throw this agenda back on screen for a minute. And I'll put all these on our website. But yeah, February session, other state input and feedback on our 24 report and code of ethics. I'll just work up some questions based on outside conversations I have with them. That would be helpful for them to focus on. And then March session, private sector, the April session talking about legislative activity, and the May session talking about uses of AI opportunities for the state. I think that there's some good planning.
Look at us.
That's all I have.
I've been waiting to tease John because I got to tease him about something once we go off record.
Okay.
So then we
I
should have
move
some
that we-
motion to adjourn. Yeah.
Yeah.
I move we adjourn.
Yeah, you're freaking me out with that smoke detector above you. That